What happens when you take the friendly neighborhood superhero archetype, the kid worrying about math tests and bullies, and draft him into a war that spans the entire universe? Most origin stories are about destiny. You're the chosen one. You're the billionaire genius. You're the thunder god. But today we're talking about a guy who was just there. We're talking about a working class kid from Queens who looked up to the stars hoping for an escape, only to find out that the stars were full of burning fleets and dying worlds. This is a story of how a C-list hero became the only thing standing between our universe and total extinction. So let's talk about Richard Rider. Let's talk about Nova. Welcome back to Marvel Echoes Resonance. I'm your host, Will, and today we're keeping with the cosmic theme of the week. If you've been listening to the show for a while, specifically back in episode 3, we talked about Spider-Man. We mentioned how Peter Parker set the template for the everyman hero, the guy who has to pay rent, save the city, all in the same day. Well, in 1976, Marvel decided to see, could that formula work, in zero gravity? Writer Marv Wolfman and artist John Buscema introduced us to Richard Rider, the man called Nova. And if you read those early issues, the DNA of Spider-Man is really all over them. Richard wasn't a genius. He was a C-list student at Truman High. He wasn't particularly brave or noble to start with. He was just frustrated. He felt invisible. Now, here's the echo that defines his origin, and it's distinct from someone like Green Lantern over at DC. Hal Jordan was there because he had the ability to overcome great fear. Captain America, of course, was chosen for his morality. Richard Rider, he was chosen by arithmetic. Roman Day, the last centurion of the planet Xandar, was dying in orbit above Earth. He was chasing an intergalactic warlord named Zor. Day needed to pass his power on to someone, anyone on the surface that could finish the fight. He fired a beam of energy down and hit Rich. Just random chance. Imagine winning the lottery, but the prize is a gold helmet, the ability to fly at supersonic speeds, and a draft card for an interstellar militia. For a while, it was a power fantasy. Rich loved it. He was the human rocket. He was busting up local thugs and feeling great about himself. But the universe has a way of humbling you. In the late 70s, Rich got dragged into a war to save the planet Xandar. He saw the scale of the cosmos, the politics, the armies, the death. And honestly, it broke him a little bit. In 1979, in a comic called ROM number 24, which used to be part of the Marvel Universe, Rich did something that feels almost unthinkable for a major hero today. He quit. He gave up. He didn't want the powers. He asked to be sent home. He missed his family, he missed his burgers, and he missed not being shot at by Skrulls. So, for an entire decade of the 80s, while the X-Men were fighting Magneto and the Avengers were dealing with Kang, Richard Rider was flipping burgers and washing dishes. He was a nobody again. But you can't run for that kind of power. In 1990, he was brought back into the fold in New Warriors number 1. And this moment really defines the violent 90s. Night Thrasher, which is basically Batman riding a skateboard, tracked Rich down, realizing his powers were just dormant, and threw him off of a roof. Sink or swim, kid. Spoiler, he flew. This launched his Kid Nova era. He was part of a team dealing with insecurities, dating Namorita, which is Namor's cousin, and generally trying to figure out where he fit in. He was a heavy hitter of a B-list team. It was fine. He was a solid hero. Then came 2006. If you're a fan of Marvel Cosmic, you know exactly what word is coming next. Annihilation. We've talked about it in the last 2 episodes. This is the moment where the echo of Richard Rider shifts from Peter Parker in space to something more like the sole survivor of a zombie apocalypse. The Annihilation Wave, which is an armada of insectoid warships from the Negative Zone, led by Annihilus, they punch into our universe. Their first target? The Kiln space prison on Xandar. The entire Nova Corps, thousands of Centurions, Rich's friends, the support network, they're wiped out in minutes. Rich is the only one left. And to keep Xandarian culture from disappearing, the World Mind, which is a sentient supercomputer that holds their entire history and knowledge, downloads itself directly into Rich's head. So now you have this guy from Queens holding the entire power of a starship and the collective consciousness of a dead civilization inside of his brain. He goes from Kid Nova to Nova Prime. This arc is incredible because it strips away the gee whiz superhero tropes. Rich becomes a general. He organizes a resistance called the United Front alongside Star-Lord, Drax, and Gamora. He's tired. His uniform is torn up. His eyes are glowing with raw energy because he can barely contain the power. And there's this one moment. It's the climax of the event. It defines the modern vision for the character. He faces Annihilus. The villain gives this big speech about destiny and being a god, and Rich, he doesn't make a quip. He doesn't try to arrest him. He basically says, "This is for my friends." He jams his hand down Annihilus' throat and pulls his internal organs out. It's brutal. It's visceral. And it signaled to every reader that the human rocket had left the building. This was a war veteran who did what was necessary. So let's fast forward a bit and see where that trauma took him, because you don't just rip a warlord inside out and go back to high school. After Annihilation, Rich became what writers Dan Abnett and Andy Lanning called the Lonely God. He was policing a broken galaxy by himself, too powerful to really connect with the people he was saving, and too traumatized to go back to Earth and play by the Avengers rules. He actually visited Earth during Civil War, took one look at Tony and Cap fighting, and basically said, "You guys are idiots," and left. This isolation reached its breaking point in a story called The Thanos Imperative, which we briefly mentioned, of course, in our episode about Vi-La-Vell. This was a tear in the universe leading to a place called the Cancerverse, a reality where death had been defeated and life was this overflowing, tumorous nightmare. Thanos was involved, naturally, hence the name. Rich and his best friend, Peter Quill, which Star-Lord, realized the only way to seal the breach was from the inside. So, in a massive moment of sacrifice, Nova Prime stayed behind. He trapped himself in a dying dimension to save the 616. And for years, as far as we knew, Richard Rider was dead. Now, while he was gone, a new kid named Sam Alexander picked up a different helmet. Sam is great. He brought that youthful energy back that we saw in the original Nova. But the shadow of Rich Rider was always there. And eventually, as comics do, Rich returned. But he didn't come back quite whole. The modern era of Nova, from around 2017 to today, has been a fascinating study in PTSD. When Rich came back from the Cancerverse, he was haunted. He felt like he was still fighting the war. In Al Ewing's Guardians of the Galaxy run, we actually saw Rich go to therapy. He had to confront the fact that he was addicted to the crisis, that he didn't know who he was without a war to fight, or a world mind in his head telling him what to do. It's a real human evolution. He went from a kid wishing for adventure to the man who realized the adventure cost him his peace of mind. Today, in the current From the Ashes era of Marvel, Rich is basically the elder statesman of the Cosmic Corner. He's the veteran who shows up when things get dire. He's mentoring the younger generation, trying to keep the new Nova Corps from making the same mistakes. And finally, he's allowing himself to be Rich from Queens again, even if it's just for a little while. He's scared, he's tired, but he's still flying. I'll leave you with this question, and it's one that the comics have wrestled with for years. Richard Rider was given absolute power by pure chance. It cost him his youth, his mental health, and nearly his life. If he could go back to 1976, knowing that he would end up holding the memories of a dead civilization and fighting a forever war, do you think he would still step into that beam of light? Or would he have just let it hit someone else? Let me know what you think in the comments below. Thanks for listening to this episode of Marvel Echoes. If you enjoyed the deep dive into the human rocket, make sure you subscribe and follow so you don't miss any of our future episodes. Leaving a like and a 5-star review really helps the podcast grow and reach more fans like you. And hey, drop a comment letting me know which cosmic character we should cover next. We have the entire Guardians to go through. And for more content, including deep dive articles, reading guides, and awesome visual infographic on Nova's power scaling, be sure to visit the website in the links below. Until next time, true believers, make mine Marvel.